What to make of the new announcements from the Endocrine Society and the OBGYN group about toxicity and health. We asked Toxic Babies producer Penelope Jagessar Chaffer.
Penelope, if you haven't watched the TED Talk, you got to go and check it out because it was beautiful. And it was one of the things when I was sort of in the trenches of medicine and realizing that most doctors didn't realize that this was a thing. You know, seeing things like your TED Talk really, I think kept us all going. So, what are your thoughts on these new pronouncements by the OBGYN and the Endocrine Society as far as the whole movement of understanding toxins as playing a role in chronic, pediatric, and regular health?
Well, first of all, it has to be welcomed because they're a long time coming to the table. And I think that their endorsement really shows that we've reached a point where we have to start accepting the science. So I think that's great. The problem that I have is that it's a little late. And the interesting thing is that whilst we think things are getting better because we have the Endocrine Society coming to the table, and they're a great organization, I do a lot of work with them, the problem is that actually what the science is showing is that the problem is much more complicated and even worse in some cases than we think.
Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Not too long ago, a study was published by a really interesting researcher, a Spanish researcher called Angel Nadal. He actually does a lot of work with diabetes, and he started looking at BPA, and what he found was that BPA triggers estrogen receptivity differently depending on where in the cell the estrogen receptor is. And estrogen receptors in the nucleus are triggered in a much more significant way than anywhere else. So in other words, it's almost as if it's a higher dosage of estrogen. Now that is mind-blowing when you think of the FDA, for example, regulating BPA in water containers and baby bottles and things like that. It's based on the current research that we have, which suggests that BPA isn't that estrogenic. It's not that bad an estrogen.
Yeah.
But it also is challenging because you ask the question, can you extrapolate that out to other chemicals that have endocrine disrupting abilities, like phthalates, for example? There's no reason to suggest that that may not also be the case. So what we're seeing, and there's also some really good research coming out that shows that the way that we've been looking at the metabolites of BPA has not been technically correct in terms of liver function. And so that suggests that it's actually a lot worse than it is. The other thing I want to mention really quickly is the idea of replacements. So we have this great awareness, and this is amazing. And then we have what I call the free movement, the free economic movement, BPA free. So BPA has got to be replaced with something because it's really awful. And everybody goes out and buys the replacement, but BPA is replaced with BPF or BPS, with the same bisphenol molecule.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's an A to Z of bisphenol molecules. You can get bisphenol Z, for example.
Yeah.
And so whilst we're thinking this is really great and the awareness is fantastic and we're taking all of this stuff out, what are we putting in to replace these things? Because the expectation as a consumer is that if you're going to give me something that still works in the same way, it's going to work in the same way. So you're taking stuff out, it still has to be the same thing. I mean, you mentioned Food Babe, Subway took the yoga mat chemical out, but Subway bread still behaves in the same way, still looks the same way, it still tastes the same way. So what did they replace that with?
Thanks so much for watching, and for more great clips like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've created a special free video just for you called Harnessing the Power of Community in Your Practice, and it'll give you a clinical model, practical tools that double as marketing, and strategies to develop a community of your peers. All you have to do is click on the link below.